Hi, everyone. Before we start the show, we have a couple of quick announcements. The first is that we'll be doing a live recording of the podcast at Super Week in Hungary at the end of January. We would love to meet you there, so head on over to superweek.hu and give that a look. Next, we've got a couple of big announcements. As we kick off our third year of the podcast, we've got some exciting updates. We now have a website. You can find us at analyticshour.io. Tim informs me that the .io means that we're cool. And on that site, we now have an official way for you to submit a topic you would like to have us cover on the show. Second, starting with episode 51, the one with Mo Kiss, we're now posting transcriptions of each episode on our site. We don't think you want to read the show, but maybe it will help if there's something you heard that you want to go back and find. Anyways, we're excited about what 2017 will bring. Check out superweek.hu, analyticshour.io, and now on with the show.
Welcome to the Digital Analytics Power Hour. Tim, Michael, and the occasional guest discussing digital analytics issues of the day. Find them on Facebook at facebook.com/analyticshour and their website analyticshour.io. And now, the Digital Analytics Power Hour.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Digital Analytics Power Hour. This is episode 53. The first episode of 2017, but we won't let that get us stressed out. It's a brand new year, and we're going to start on something that probably not a lot of us are sure of. Have you ever not been sure about what something is, but been afraid to admit it? Well, welcome to this episode of the show, where we are going to talk about
JavaScript,
customer data platforms. Three words that sound like they go together, but do they really mean what we think they mean? It's just shrouded in mystery, and luckily we have a guest who can help us. Are you ready for this adventure, Tim Wilson?
I am ready.
Okay. And are you ready for 2017?
Easy there. Let's not push it.
Okay. Well, let's get Todd introduced. Todd Belcher is our guest. He's the Director of Customer Success at Blue Conic. And prior to that, he did digital analytics at Putnam Investments. And back in the midst of time, he was part of the Sane Solutions /Unica/IBM tribe of analytics warriors. No, that's probably not. Anyways, he's also a certified web analyst and a certified Bostonian. Welcome to the show, Todd.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Tim. It is great to be here. And yes,
which
a
test
warrior.
was harder? The certification for being a Bostonian or the certification for being a web analyst? Just curious.
They're just different. I'm going to call apples and oranges here.
Once you practica and have it, you were good to go, and that didn't on the. And I'm talking about the web analyst test, of course.
Yeah, that's
Let's
right.
just say in both situations, I look over my shoulder every time I say I'm one of them.
That's right. Well, you are one of us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
So to kick things off, how would you tell someone who's never heard of or doesn't really understand what a customer data platform, how would you describe it to them? So there's a lot of different technologies that I think touch on it, but I'd love to start with your definition. We can go from there.
Sure. No, I like to start with activation of data, basically. I think it's a lot more than that. I think that David Robb, among some others, has done a really good job of kind of trying to define what a customer data platform is. The word marketing is often used, so being a marketer-controlled system where data can be activated across channels is probably the simplest and shortest way to try to define it.
No buzzwords in there.
Yeah, marketer.
So what does that mean? Like it's cross-channel and activating the data, meaning you're getting the cross-channel data with the customer-centric orientation of the data, and you're then making it available to other systems to actually do stuff with it?
Yeah, I think so. But at the same time, it's about anonymous, anonymous people, if you will, just as much as it is about known entities. It's about associating those identities across devices when possible, and trying to use information that you either have or that you can collect to deliver a more relevant experience, so that we, hopefully make that whatever the experience is more effortless for the consumer, the user, whoever that might be.
It sounds a lot like the promise of CRM since time immemorial and what CRMs claim, I guess, except for the anonymous piece. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think in a way, the CRM, at least what it has become, I think is maybe a little bit more tied to offline channels and less capable of collecting data or playing nice with other platforms.
Well, a CRM doesn't typically try to record your impressions or click-throughs on media. Would a customer data platform attempt to track that? Would it go that far upstream? Is that like a CRM? In my mind, generally, and maybe I'm thinking a little bit in Salesforce speak, but it starts with kind of a lead. Like they're a known entity who has come to some owned property and has therefore been loaded into your system. So you've kind of got them in the space where you can market to them as a known entity, whereas it sounds like a CDP is much, much broader. Or maybe the other extreme is a DMP, a data management platform, is kind of all about the media and audiences, and they want to stitch as much stuff together as they can, but they're not there to actually say this is what your sales team is going to work. So does a CDP fall somewhere in the sweet spot that brings both of those together, or no? Not so much?
Yeah. And in a way, I guess what I'm laughing about at the moment is that we're starting off the conversation trying to talk about DMP versus CDP, and not what the differences are. I think we could talk about that, but what instantly comes to my mind, the way that you're talking about this is, at what point is it even not okay to have all this data in the same place? Because with the customer data platform, what we're trying to do is we're trying to associate an actual identity to the people who are anonymous users of your websites and mobile apps. So to take what we're trying to do, and there are many different approaches to trying to do that. On top of identity association, I think customer data platforms they're typically geared towards acquisition. Try to get someone who is anonymous to convert into a lead. There are ways that you can help do that with data, whether it's collected by your system, analyzed in another system and brought back, or just the anonymized data is used within your system to come up with recommendations or to otherwise steer the messaging towards your persona so that you do become an identified entity. And I guess going back to why I thought the question was funny is I hadn't really spent any time thinking about what happens when you take a person who's been associated and identified as an anonymous user out on the web, and what ads they're seeing on what sites is all part of their anonymous profile that the DMPs hold. What happens when you have that and you mix that data with the CDP that is there to try to drive a real name and associate PII with that profile? I think it's just a really interesting conversation that I wasn't planning on having.
Tim stumbled right over that? What? No, I don't know if that was on purpose or not, Tim, but that is a very interesting question, and frankly, it's alarming, so we won't talk about it. No, I'm just kidding.
It was not intentional. I remain somewhat befuddled, and that can probably rattle this off because, Blueconic's not one of the companies in play, but with a client that's got, it seems like every time they turn around, they're getting a new platform. They're going to load everybody into a CRM. And then next thing you turn around and they've got a DMP, and they've bought the DMP, and then they've bought what I realized after doing a little prep for this was a CDP. And in that case, sitting and looking at the CDP and the DMP, I'm like, you guys sound like you're promising the same thing, which really was, by the time it got translated to the business owners, they would say, the DMP would say, no, we're different from what the CDP is doing. And the CDP would say, no, we're different from what the DMP is doing. But then as soon as the vendors had left the room, and they were never in the room at the same time, the business owner would literally describe them exactly the same. Oh, it's so we can get audiences and we can look at their behavior and we can kind of track them across different things, and then we can target them with like ads and other messaging. And there was a total lack of clarity. And I fall into that a little bit too when I look at what organizations have implemented now, and adding another layer, which one do they want to pursue? And I'm sure there's somebody who has the full MarTech landscape totally internalized could say, I see how all of these pieces fit together, but I am not one of the people who sees how all the pieces fit together and don't wind up doing kind of some form of land grab, or maybe it's some form of prioritization and just debating the problem that they're solving is being a higher order problem than the problem that a different type of platform is solving.
It's hard. You can't really help it when you get on these subjects, unfortunately, especially when you pull out the acronyms. But the DMP, I think, you can look at it as a specialization in, identities for advertising, where I think a CDP is more specializing for identities for your known customers. And yes, maybe that includes a lot of anonymous data, but the point is to use that anonymous data to build an anonymous profile that could one day be stitched with a known profile at the point that user authenticates. And I think.
But wait, known customers, but anonymous data. It's potentially known customers. Everything that you're collecting, you're saying it may be anonymous now, but I have a pathway to where you would become known.
That's right, and it's an important distinction. Just because the CRM, I think. You lose that information in a CRM. So that's one of the distinctions between those two platforms. Is a CRM starts when that person becomes identified and has to start speaking with you based on whatever information they're able to gather at that point. Where if connected with a CDP, the CRM has all of the anonymous data that occurred prior to that point already loaded up. Because there was a CDP helping with the anonymous data collection leading up to the lead generation.
But I think back to my Eloqua days of marketing automation, and they were touting the unknown to known. And in a sense, and even in Google Analytics saying that, maybe it's a subset. They're saying, sure, if you assign them a user ID, and as long as you have built your system to give them a user ID, even if they are anonymous to you, once they become known, you've still got them tied to their pre-known state. But is that inherently, you're solving this one little one-off thing? If your CDP was what was providing that user ID that you were hooking in, then you're kind of setting yourself up for pull that from other different places and get a fuller picture when they become known. Is that it?
No, I think that there are so many different things that CDPs are there to do that if you take any one of them, there are going to be platforms that do them. And similarly, that's how a lot of these things became part of a CDP. It starts with creating a massive user profile with data from multiple sources, and then because you have the profile, you're trying to do more things with it. You need to be able to segment those profiles and ship off, in real time, some group of users out to other systems. And then, next thing you have essentially online testing and optimization that goes along with personalized messaging on site. So every platform, I think, has taken a different path and has different features. And I think it's kind of the same thing as the land grab that you mentioned with other platforms that have existed for a long time, whether they're CRM or tag management or other systems that are starting to think about persistent data or being able to target audiences in the case of some of our optimization tools. There is a lot of kind of bleeding over the lines, I think, in marketing technology, but it's driven by what customers need. And sometimes there are customers who can just take the features that they get from one platform and replace a whole other system with that until they become, they reach a certain level of maturity, and then maybe they need a pure player in whatever that technology stack is.
All right. So do you have to be a customer to be in a CDP, or no? You just have to maybe gonna be a customer.
Yeah, I think that's the way that we look at it, right? The anonymous users are, maybe they are customers already, and you just haven't been able to identify that, or maybe they're fully
in
anonymous.
A lot of senses, like, as marketers, we've been doing this kind of work for a long time in terms of trying to integrate like back-end customer data with sort of like digital behavioral data and building logic and stuff like that. We've just been doing it in different platforms than what's now called the CDP. Is that fair to say?
I guess, except that the CDP is, it's activated by nature. So whatever data is in the CDP, you have it on your websites.
Gotcha. So it's basically now accessible. So this is like, I can now hook into this in all the different ways.
Right. And that's, I think there's lots of different approaches, lots of different connections to different platforms, as is always the case. But I think one of the things is just the personalization is bolted right on top of your website or your mobile apps, and being able to use whatever data is flowing through the customer data platform for that.
And are all of these considered to be a CDP? Do you need to be real time, or is some real time and some not real time? Is there a standard there?
I would say yes, you need to be real time. I would say there probably are plenty of them out there that maybe aren't. But yeah, I think real time is a big part of it. As soon as you get information about a customer, whether that comes from an online or offline channel, if the information's hitting systems, then other systems need to know about it. And so, yeah, the real time is, in my mind, a necessity.
Okay, well, and I can see how that'd be pretty handy, because if you're doing stuff on a website and that's triggering, mailers or whatever else I know about you or whatever, that's all good ideas.
Yeah, and a lot of time it's about helping people take the next step, and it's not always about marketing, even though, yes, the customer data platform is mainly geared towards marketers. I think what's nice is that also means it should be easy to use. Another thing I like to say is, even though we're developed for marketers, we're developed by developers. So, they're very smart people, data scientists and programmers who think about these things. And so it's not just that marketing is the only application, it just so happens to be a very useful one, where you're trying to get people from one step to the next. And there's really clear definition around what that is.
I feel like we're still being kind of abstract.
Can't help it.
Well,
I think we can build a scenario, probably.
Well, yeah, so build a scenario of what somebody has today, and this is almost going to sound like it's asking you to give a Blue Conic sales pitch, which it's not really. I don't want to get that specific, but these are the things I have today. This is the pain that I'm feeling or the opportunity that I'm missing.
Yeah, I think there are a few probably pretty decent ones. One is actually, just folks who have marketing automation. They have campaign management systems and marketing automation around all kinds of offline data, and these things have been working for, say, 10 or 20 years, but somehow that same, like synchronizing the same campaign messaging online is still a problem for a lot of people. So that's one simple one, is just, you've got propensity modeling, you have, segmented messaging that happens offline, whether it's on call centers or it's in actual direct mail, but that same ability to target messaging doesn't exist in online channels. So a customer data platform is there to make that easier. That's, I think, one simple one. It's not that's every use case, but.
So you could say, okay, well, I've got a campaign rule that's going to go and do something because I learned something about you in, I don't know, wherever the data is coming from. And then you have like maybe a site targeting rule or something like that. So your tool, all it does is just sort of make the profile or the data that I'm looking for available, and I'm hooking into that with my other things like my campaign management tool, my site targeting tool, my AdWords customizations or segment building or whatever.
Yeah, I think on top of that, though, comes the real-time first-party data collection, the actual collection of what's happening right then and there. So whatever the propensity model is or whatever the next best step for the customer is supposed to be, there are a couple of other things that go along with that. All that campaign management, that segmentation is all for known users. So it's about taking the same segmentation and mirroring what you did in the offline world and the online world with anonymous people, so that you can still put relevant messages in front of people even though you don't know who they are, and carry on similar campaigns until the point that they become known, and then everything ties together on that end.
In essence, instead of bringing in a customer ID, you're building a customer ID that may or may not have a customer attached to it. So it could be like, hey, cookie123 has visited us 5 times. They've never purchased, so all I have is just their behavioral information. But they match all these characteristics or attributes that I define as this segment. So now I'm going to just keep putting them in this segment the next time they come to the website.
Exactly right. And so then they see different carousel sliders, or they get different messaging about signing up for an account, with some kind of some message that really hits home for that particular user group.
But that being said, until they go to a certain level of authentication, I can't do things like trigger an email or send a mailer or whatever, or I don't know if I'm doing that right because they haven't identified all those behaviors as a customer. So you probably have a lot of logic that looks at people and says, oh, it's these 2 records, now I'm going to merge them into one record because all this anonymous data is now associated with this customer ID that I've got from before.
Exactly right. That's where our buzzwords there are: identity association, right? So taking some identifier that's been acquired and merging any other data that we have based on that identifier or attached to that identifier in real time. So, within that same page view or click or whatever it is, you're able to have a unified record of information.
So is that, I have like 3. So one is, Michael, as you were describing it, I swear it sounded like you were describing the Adobe Marketing Cloud and the reason for the Marketing Cloud ID. Is that what it's called? Wherever Adobe has a Marketing Cloud Visitor ID, right? That is trying to be their bridge over top of everything. And in a certain sense, it could be thought of as a customer data platform. However, there's something really key there, which is worth noting. I'm sure Adobe loves that I'm going to bring this up right now, but it takes about 24 hours for attributes or segments you create to be available in the other tools. Okay.
So this is where that real-time piece that I asked about earlier makes a big difference potentially for marketers. Because if I find out something new about you as a visitor today, the first time I can target content at you, so like I learned something about you via Adobe Analytics, then tomorrow I can use Adobe Target to target you, but I couldn't do it on your next visit 30 minutes from now.
Got it. That was awesome. That was helpful. So then next question is, how does the anonymous tie into the offline to online cross-channel linking? Aren't those somewhat mutually exclusive, that you can track them in multiple channels, but until they have done something to provide the key, and I can take hey, you click through on this email, and the email digitally, it's easier to say you click through on the same email from 2 different devices. I can stitch that together. But is there some mechanism or concept that it is probabilistically trying to stitch them together? Or when you're making the links and saying this is the same person, offline activity, online activity, is that inherently waiting until they've sort of somehow self-identified, I'm the same person?
Yeah, I think by nature, customer data platforms are deterministic. I couldn't speak to the probabilistic capabilities of any given platform, but I could say that it's only a matter of time. If it's not happening now, then the probabilistic modeling will happen. I think it's all about control at that point and being able to make sure that the marketer or whoever's controlling the customer data platform can really dictate what happens with that information. Does it stick with the customer profile forever? Is it a short-term thing? I think there are some important rules that you want associated with probabilistic association. But no, for the most part, I deal with deterministic. So we get some identifier, like you said. It could be that somebody's clicking through on an email, and that's another decision point. Do you assume every time that somebody clicks on an email that's the same person, or is it only that you assume that up until the point that they actually log in?
So, and that was kind of the third thing that came up as we were talking, is that I sort of had a flashback to and I think this is actually going to be a similar answer to what, Michael, your point was. I spent a period where we were digging into customer data integration and customer data management, and that did have a probabilistic component, but that was heavily not real time. And this was, big vendors, and I'm blanking on their names, trying to say, oh, wow, you have these 7 contacts in your database. But that was the challenge. We were dealing with our database, our customer database of known users. And like a lot of companies had multiple systems, and even within one system, because they had multiple phone numbers, they had multiple email addresses, we could manually look at a record and say, holy crap, we have 7 records. This is clearly the same person. How do we kind of compress that? This was probably 10 years ago, and it was messy as hell then. It was kind of a subgenre of master data management. It was the customer side of master data management. It was absolutely not going to be real time. It was really just trying to get us to clean up our transactional systems, ultimately getting into the data warehouse. Now what we're talking about is like, oh, by the way, cast the net a hell of a lot broader, go to your anonymous stuff and do it in real time. But we're going to draw the barricade and say, we're going to draw a line and say we're going to stick with deterministic. We're not going to try to say, wow, you sure look like you're probably the same person. What level of false positive or false negative are we willing to take on? So I'm not sure where that was going. I just realized that was another thing. The word CDI, there was another acronym in CDM, Customer Data Management, early precursors of this, but that was not at the activation level, certainly wasn't at the real-time or near real-time level. But it's starting to get a little clearer in my head where this fits.
That's good. Yeah.
Full stop.
Great show. Thanks, everybody.
So we talked about why Adobe would be different, and I think Google isn't even casting as broad a number of, their suite is not as broad. But Michael, you brought up Telium. I think Insighton has kind of said the same thing. I think Signal is kind of moving in that direction as well.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Todd, but there are some other sort of pure play vendors in the space. Like, Tim, you mentioned Lytics. Is treasure data considered in this space, or TMM data, or as I like to call them, too much data? Sorry.
Yeah, no, there are several others in the space. I think obviously Scott Brinker's marketing technology landscape is always a good reference point. But if you really look hard at it, some of the companies that you mentioned, like Insight and Telium, I don't believe are in our little neck of the woods there. So I think it's still fuzzy from a category perspective, because each platform has taken a different approach. Some are very mobile, some are very not mobile, some work with both platforms just fine. And then the features that have been bolted on top, as far as how do you execute on the data, is what I think is most important. It's having the data and being able to activate that on the web, in your email program, especially for a lot of my peeps, the digital marketers in the world, who have had an immense amount of data out there, but haven't necessarily been able to create a simple segment of users based on information that they have and market to them differently, whether that's on the website or in an email. From a vendor standpoint, each one kind of stands alone in a way at the core. Hopefully the vendor that folks are choosing solves the problems that they need to solve. The customer data platform itself, I don't think that you could point at it and say that there's a very clear set of features other than that profile and being able to take data in and out in real time from other systems.
So you collect data from, say, websites and things like that. Do you allow people to just bring over digital data. So could I send you like all my Adobe Analytics or Google Analytics data?
Right. And I guess where we see it probably more often is with customer data. So you just don't have, if you're a retailer or a publisher, never mind that you might not have people coming to your site out of the hundreds of thousands or millions of people you know. But even when they do come to the site, you don't know it's them. So there's a lot of data that folks have that can be activated. The customer data platform can help build the segments. So the segments are built in real time. You're pointing and clicking, defining a segment that you want to be able to market to an email or maybe in Facebook ads or Google ads that accept some kind of a known identifier like an email address or a phone number. And so you can actually use a customer data platform with data that's coming out of a CRM exclusively or point of sale system or some other marketing database, customer database, and use the customer data platform with those profiles just like you'd use it with anonymous profiles or profiles of users who'd been to your digital properties.
But is there a in your case, like I know Lytics has, Lytics tag, and I know every DMP says tag this stuff. Are you guys the same way? Do you have that is kind of probably the preferred or the clean way is to say everything that can be tracked where your tracking technology can be there. That gives a direct pipe from action taken, information recorded, stored in the database. And then it's kind of how broadly will that cover? And then what are you supplementing that with that you can actually stitch together? Is that?
I think that's right. Yeah, if you're a purely online business, and then you put your JavaScript on the websites in your apps and tie data together that way. Otherwise, you've got other systems that have customer data in them, and you can bring that on board and synchronize that with everything that's happening online.
Excellent. Well, I should probably just go ahead and let you know, Tim, I have installed the free version of BlueConic on our website, analyticshour.io, while we've been talking. So they have a handy dandy tag.
Nicely done.
Hey,
I'm trying so hard here not to be the sales guy, and you're in the background installing.
You're doing a great job, Todd. I figured, you know what? What's a better way for us to get a little bit smarter about this? And then I went to your website, and it's like, oh, you can get 1,000 profiles and look at them for free. I was like, that's a great way for us to figure out.
But what are we going to do with the people who come in the second hour of the day after now that you've got
Well,
this?
There's only one power hour, so I think what we'll do is we'll give a discount on downloads during that hour.
Half off.
So good.
Hey.
So it automatically already connected to our Google Tag Manager and Universal Analytics. I don't really know how it did that, but it just said, yep. Or it's selecting those connections. Start at dimension 1.
This is not going to be a real-time implementation.
Boom, start using BlueConic. Yeah, I mean, it took 5 minutes to set that up. So, and again, that's not how an enterprise would do it. But I mean, it's kind of cool, Todd, to me, that you guys leave a version that people can actually go and start to use for free, because that tells me two things. One is it tells me you guys are not afraid of people kicking the tires on your technology, which means that you're confident in what you've built. And that makes me excited because it means maybe you've built something really cool. The second thing is it lets jokers like me pretend like I know what I'm talking about if I get in there and futz around with it. But actually, that's really good because a lot of people, like junior people, analytics people who don't have as many years in, a lot of times they want or need access or would like to learn about things, but not have access to those tools, right? So we all can get access to Google Analytics, but unless you have, some way to get a hold of maybe Adobe Analytics or another paid tool, how do you get experience with it? So that's pretty neat. So thanks, you guys. And I don't know if other vendors do that. So, maybe you're just the same as everybody else. Let us know on our Facebook page or on our new website, analyticshour.io. If you do that, because obviously we're not trying to prefer one vendor over the other, but it just so happens Todd is with BlueConic, so we're talking a little bit about that product today.
Yeah, I'm glad Michael signed up there. Hopefully you're setting it up, Michael. You're adding the JavaScript to the site now. Are we going to launch some user interactions? That's what I'm looking for. We've got to go live tonight.
Well, yeah. So we've already got one visitor, and now I'm looking at your listeners. So, because I was like, oh, listeners, that's what we have. But I think you mean like event listeners. So
data collectors, yes.
yeah. But so looking at this, so it looks like you kind of have another group of tags that I can add to specific events or activities that are, or are these pre-configured? Because
that's right. There's no change to the tag. I think that's another CDP thing, right? Is the marketer supposed to be able to do it? I won't say that all the listeners are 100%.
We ran into this in the TMS space. Don't sell directly. I mean, you do sell directly to marketers, but be careful. We all stumbled over ourselves saying you'll never need to talk to IT again, and just.
No, yeah, exactly right. So I was just about to get into, like, from an implementation perspective, our customers lean on us quite a bit to help set up the data collection, because the problem is you just bought new software to do something and you don't need to spend a lot of time trying to learn how to collect data with it. So it was built for marketers, but it's still very technical. That's why you have onboarding services or implementation services or whatever it is. So our customers can learn by us doing something and then them seeing what we did and us teaching them why we did it that way, as opposed to them just kind of having to learn everything before they can get data activated, which is really the point, and what folks want to do within weeks of signing up.
Yep. So yeah, no, we've got the tag on the site, and so now it's just up to Tim and I to put together some strategies for what our segments are and
it's great
how to define.
We got the tool. Now we got to go figure out what problem we're trying to solve.
Hey, sometimes things happen in that order, Tim. You just have to go with it.
It's been well over 45 episodes since we were accused of having a sales pitch. We need to be very clear that Todd is desperately trying to not.
Yes, this sales pitch is coming from Michael Helbling, who'd like to, not getting any money for this, but would like you to consider getting a free Blue Conic account. And no one's asked me to say that.
We can change the topic anytime, but I'm also happy to keep using Blue Conic. Let's just keep it up. I think let's get some. Let's get my face on your website right now if you're logging in from North Attleboro, Massachusetts.
Perfect. Oh, let me make sure I'm at my dashboard. All right. I only see one visitor right now, but it is pretty cool, Tim. All right, we might have to cut out some of this.
Yeah. Can you add multiple users is the question. Am I going to have access to this?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, up to 2 users on the free version.
Okay.
So
perfect.
That's about perfect. Yeah, I researched this ahead of time, Tim. No worries.
That's good.
Yeah. Anyways, all right. I think we still had some other ideas or questions, so we should probably get back to that. Sorry to distract.
I mean, I think for me, this has been pretty clarifying. I feel like a lot of it, I was walking in ready to play, 3-letter acronym bingo, and it's a lot clearer to me, I think, where these fit. I'm sufficiently down on media that, to me, I'm like, yeah, why don't you get a little closer to the people you can acquire that a CDP if I'm going to chase a CDP or a DMP, and I think, Todd, you kind of called it out. It's really different constituencies in an organization that are going to chase them. The challenge, I think, is because DMPs want you to throw their tags on every interaction and transaction, and the TMSs that are moving into that world are saying, hey, drop our thing on it. So there's still a challenge. It seems like there's got to still be an internal organizational challenge to say, this is our way forward. We have this, we know this stuff is out there. We could bring it in, and then this is what we would specifically do with it, not just we would have it or we'd be able to activate. We could say, we know the volume is there. We know this is what we could do with it. We know right now we're looking at the data. We're just looking at the data 36 hours after it would have been, really useful.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think coming back to software for me, it wasn't something I expected to do. I was a digital analytics person. I like crunching data. I like spending all the time transforming the data and then coming out with something in the end. That was a process that I enjoyed, but at the same time, I think that there was and still is a lot of frustration amongst digital analytics people that maybe we know things about the way that things happen and feel very strongly about some of the insights that have been produced, and it's very hard for an organization to take action on the information. So I think this is another avenue to help with it. It doesn't solve the problem by itself, but I think it gives data another channel in the organization aside from reporting and presentations.
While I am looking into this new tool that I got access to, which I always like to learn new technologies, we should start to talk about our last call. So this is something we like to do on the show where we talk about things that are interesting. We think our audience will find interesting as well. Technically, Blue Conic was not my last call, but I am finding it interesting at this moment. But Tim, why don't we start with you? What's your last call this week?
Sure. So this is one I tweeted about it and posted on Slack a month or two ago about it, but it's so cool that it will not leave me. It is a blog post from blog.data.gov.sg, which is basically the Singaporean government, I think, called How the Circle Line Rogue Train Was Caught with Data. And it's basically some analysts or data scientists. There was an issue with the trains in Singapore where just randomly, like every day, there were these random different trains would have electrical issues caused by like signal interference. And they could not figure out what the root cause was. It was happening to different trains in different places at different times of the day, but was consistently happening every day. And this blog post actually just goes through where these analysts got the data from the transit organization, the Land Transport Authority, and crunched it. And it walks through kind of their iterations of how they ultimately got to what the root cause was. And it's got some cool visualization. It really exposes their process. They supposedly did it in one day. Then they had to go out and actually validate it. It's just a really cool article about how analysis done well. It kind of they head down some sort of dead ends, but the dead ends kind of spark other ideas. It's just a really, really nifty little read. So I recommend it. How the Circle Line Rogue Train Was Caught with Data.
Nice. What about you, Todd?
From a reading standpoint on analytics, I've been enjoying where Stefan Hamill and Gary Angel have been lately. So I'm just going to stick 2 thumbs up for 2 classics. I think that the radical analytics concept there is a good one of Mr. Hamill, and I think that customer data platforms and that kind of idea of being radical and finding ways to solve problems differently is I think they go together well. And I think Gary also has at least for me, I caught him at eMetrics a couple months back, and I think he had some things to say there that really spoke to some of the problems that customer data platforms are meant to solve. So those have been top of mind for me tonight.
What's funny is my last call has a Stefan Hamel connection too, because I believe it was something he posted or tweeted about or recommended on Medium. I don't know, but there's an article called The Data Science Delusion on Medium, and the guy who wrote it, Anand Ramanathan, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, and I'm sorry, I don't. Anyways, I read that recently and really loved it because not only did he do a great job talking about data science generally, he did a really great job breaking down why companies struggle to incorporate data science effectively and some of the challenges on both sides that can kind of occur. So I felt like it was reading that I wanted to go and send to every single person I'd ever talked to about data science to be like, this is what I've been trying to say. But he said it in such a good, solid way that I really was a fan of it. So that was my last call.
It's funny. He's got a Venn diagram. I think I've seen the Venn diagram he's got in another context that riffed off of it.
Cool. Oh, really?
Venn diagrams.
Okay. Venn diagrams.
+1 for Venn diagrams. For the win.
FTW.
FTW.
All right. As you've been listening, and especially...
And that's not fuck Tim Wilson.
Hey, I guess That had to happen. If you've been listening and you have been interested and you've been learning about what a customer data platform is, or you know so much more about it than what we've been able to cover because of Tim and I's lack of knowing what it is, we would love to hear from you. And now there's new and exciting ways that we can hear from you. We have a website and you can comment on it should you want to. But we also have our Facebook page.
Well, they need to have what's called an internet connection and a web browser, because now that we have a website.
Yeah. Or if you'd like us to post your comment for you, please send a self-addressed stamped envelope.
Carson City,
P.O. Box 5424, Carson City, California, 94127. Okay, that's not a real address. Please do not send them to that address. But it would be hilarious if you could send some kind of postcard and people would post it. Actually, there was a really popular website in the early part of the web, Post Secret, that literally did that. You could send things and they would post it for you. Anyways, we'd love to hear from you, both about customer data platforms or just about the show generally. And the best places to do that are our new website, the Facebook page, and the Measure Slack. And we'll throw Twitter in there for good measure. But the real cool kids are hanging out in the Measure Slack, including our guest, Todd Belcher. So, Todd, thank you very much for coming on the show. Sorry that we could not provide a more intelligent platform, but I like the foundation we were able to set. And hey, at least you have one more free user in me and potentially Tim Wilson. So maybe not a complete loss in terms of your time.
No, I totally appreciate it. Big fan of you guys. And, anytime we can have customer data platforms part 2 once you've had time to use BlueConic and you've got a better sense of it.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to do it.
Well, I mean, now we just need to do some crossover validation, looking at different tools and stuff like that. But still, major props to BlueConic for having a free version out there that people can dig into and use. I love that. Lets people see what they're getting themselves into before they cough up whatever this costs. What should a company ballpark figure be looking to spend to put a customer data platform together? Maybe based on,
I like to say a lot less than a DMP. That's
okay.
That's the way I like to think of it.
There you go.
And I also like to think that 2017 is the year of the customer data platform. So that's, you heard it here first.
Oh, man. Right? Yeah, just in
I
time.
thought it was going to be the year of mobile.
Usually our prediction show is in February, Todd, but thank you for putting this one out there right on the new year. Great job.
Couldn't much help it.
No, that's great. You heard it here first. 2017, year of the customer data platform. In mobile, of course, Tim Wilson. And anyways, thanks so much for listening. For Tim, my co-host, and I, keep analyzing and segmenting.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, or Measure Slack group. We welcome your comments and questions. Visit us on the web at analyticshour.io, facebook.com/analyticshour, or at analyticshour on Twitter.
So smart guys wanted to fit in, so they made up a term called analytics. Analytics don't work.
Do I sound all right, by the way? I've had a cold. This is one of the first days I'm coming back. I feel like I have a voice, at least.
No, you still have a little bit of a lingering cold. Could you get that cleared up in the next 2-3 minutes?
Yeah. I'll see what I can do.
Hi, everyone. Seriously?
Sorry, your hand was up. I felt like I had to talk.
Also,
So, yes, I think I just needed to make sure all my bodily functions were in order for you, Michael. We're ready to go here.
Totally okay. Don't worry. You're the star. Let's do this. Right.
What's up with guys named Todd? Are you a thought leader?
Be careful how you answer that.
I used to be.
I'm recovering.
Spelling my name with the lowercase t and then an uppercase. The first M would be uppercase, so it'd be like lowercase ti, uppercase M.
Spelling your name camel case.
Oh yeah.
It's because you're so good at R now.
Ramble and ramble and ramble.
So here's a little thought leader tip for you. You don't actually have to spend time thinking about or working with these other technologies to just hold forth on a big opinion. That's part of that.
Don't you realize you're fucking with the marketers when you guys do that?
Oof, yeah, that was sloppy on us, but you did good, Todd.
Rock flag and customer data.